Reconsider, welcome. So today I want to talk about community strata, the various categories of information you might come across within the truth community, how far you can go, the various layers, the depths of information. You have a sort of generally like a surface kind of mainstream understanding, and the more you sort of read into it, you can go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. From my own point of view, like how I got into it was actually through sort of meditation. So I took a transcendental meditation course, and then was basic transcendental meditation is like 20 minutes twice a day. You meditate under a mantra. And then I was researching meditation videos on YouTube, and I just stumbled across Dr. Stephen Greer, and generally had a passing interest in sort of UFOs and considered them pretty believable, but never really properly read into the sort of subject. But it to me sound crazy that saying that we're the only civilization and the whole of the universe seems bonkers. So yeah, it made sense that there was other civilizations out there that were potentially visiting us. But yeah, I never really kind of researched any more than that. But it wasn't until, I saw one of Stephen Greer's videos, and it was literally just videoed on a camcorder in like a conference room. And he covered the usual stuff he talks about from the very beginnings of, discovery of UFOs and reverse engineering and the secrecy that's built up through that, and the suppression of free energy, and the petro sort of Nazis who are basically just sitting on this free energy just so they can make money out of oil. And then obviously he then introduced the CE5. So that completely blew my mind. The fact that they were, making contact with, ETs and UFOs and all the rest of it, that was crazy to me. But at the time of what my mind was completely blown. It just really resonated quite well with me. The information just seemed to make complete sense about the world we live in. So that was my kind of catalyst, really, how I got into it. Then ever since then, I've just been reading, watching. It's all I do, but generally on the surface of it, I mean, the mainstream always sort of talks about UFOs, crop circles, abductions, animal mutilations, and a lot of it tends to be sort of disinformation and, the scary stuff as well, which is, put there on purpose again to sort of demonize the whole subject to make it terrifying, which has definitely been a covert like goal, really. And, it's been quite successful. Generally those sort of control systems are kind of crumbling now. But I mean, all the big stories you hear about sort of the Roswells and, the Renshaw Forest and the Phoenix Lights and the Los Angeles air raids, generally that tends to be sort of known about in the sort of mainstream potentially. But the deeper you go, you sort of potentially start to understand maybe the Nazis back in World War II were channeling and actually receiving sort of ET technology, which they were then able to make their own sort of reverse engineer craft. And then you can research about the US military actually making diplomatic kind of relations with ETs when they met President Eisenhower. And so again, you're really starting to dig deeper and deeper. And it's not until you have that base layer of understanding that the other stuff becomes plausible. And then you get the projects as well, the surface project like Operation Paperclip, where the Nazis, sort of scientists were transferred over to the US military. So they were potentially saved from being executed by the War Crimes Tribunal because they were deemed as being important assets. And then projects like Project MK Ultra for mind control, and then Operation Mockingbird, which is CIA project to influence the media, and then Stargate, which is remote viewing, which, so that's another kind of general surface layer. And then you go deeper, you start to learn about the Philadelphia experiment, and then My Labs, and then Montauk, and then some of the information in there is crazy because it deals with time travel, and it deals with materializing beings from other veils, just really crazy stuff. But without that sort of base layer of knowledge of information, those other projects just seem kooky, just like absolutely mental, and they would never happen. But the more you sort of read into it, and the dots are joined, and especially all the people involved who've got similar sort of testimonies, it starts to make sense and become believable. But it's not until you have that base knowledge that the stuff does start to make sense. But it's even to the point of extraterrestrials as well. I mean, originally, most people's understanding of extraterrestrials is the kind of the grey, the grey ET. They look quite menacing, and again, that's for a reason. It's to make the whole subject to appear quite frightening. But the more you read into it, you say, actually, a lot of the ETs look quite similar to us, and some of them are nice. Not all, but maybe overwhelming majority are. So again, you don't learn that until you really start to read deeper into that kind of area. if you go even deeper than that, you've got AI technology, artificial intelligence, which potentially has existed in other civilizations and has destroyed civilizations as people, they start to worship technology too much and they marvel at it, and they start to create, technology that's able to think for itself and then ends up taking over. And then potentially you have stories of AI just floating around the universe looking for new host planets to sort of take over, or either, civilizations like us now, we're on a cusp of potentially creating our own, and that could be a complete catastrophe. But it's not until you read again the sort of mainstream and the mid layers you can then start to potentially understand the sort of the more advanced stuff and how that is potentially possible. And then also, that's all the stuff we can sort of see in our reality. That's not even to mention the trans-dimensional beings, which is, adds another layer of complexity, where you've got beings in our reality, but there's a whole load of other different densities and realities where beings moving in and out of, and some have a body, some are like maybe just pure energy orbs. So yeah, again, it would appear crazy if you started to read it without having that base layer of information, but because you have that base layer, it starts to perceive as being plausible. And then you've got the sort of controlling mechanisms that exist. You've got the media, which, potentially subverting and sort of filtering stories, which affects our reality, through to the filtering in academia and education, and even sort of mainstream religions. A lot of the religions have elements of control that have been created just basically to keep, the sort of ancient populations and populations now in a sort of state of being subservient. So a lot of those ideas are being co-opted, but then you've got those kind of mainstream areas of control potentially, but then you go deeper down where you've got the ideas and it gets all quite David Icke, and it's like reptilian influence. And, he talks about how a lot of ancient civilizations all around the world have got similar stories to do with reptilian beings. And it starts to make sense because you've got the sort of serpent gods of Far East Central America, and you've got the Chitahuri, which are part of Zulu sort of folklore, and then the demons in Christianity, and the archons of the Gnostics. And, it goes deeper and deeper, and they've all got similar kind of stories. And again, it starts to make sense, with your base layer of information, but then due to the ancient sort of scriptures all around the world all saying the same thing, he said, well, we should start taking this seriously because there's so much corroboration of all this information. But it's quite heartening that this whole sort of consciousness revolution is occurring, not just through kind of meditation, but all kind of forms of prayer as well, and how that is potentially information that's been imparted to us by other civilizations, and how that's really important to sort of raise our vibrations, to eat well, to sort of sleep well, to look after ourselves. And in a way it starts to become like a lifestyle, because you're following a particular lifestyle way of living. That's the bit I find really fascinating, and how it can sort of then affect your everyday life. It's not just a hobby research, and it just becomes a way of life, and because it starts to make sense out of the world. And so that's the other element to basically rebelling against this system, is about understanding information but then acting on it in a really positive way. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, but thank you very much for joining me. If you'd like to subscribe, there's a big reddish orange button below you can click with a little bell. Click that for constant updates so you can see me. And then, there's the Reconsider website, which is reconsider.news. And if you fancy it and you're feeling fruity, you can donate as well, which is Patreon, which is a monthly subscription. Links below. And also one-off donations to PayPal. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.